Alright, hi everyone, welcome to today's video. On the day of this being recorded, it is Thursday, June 20th, 2024. Today is the last day of the Gemini season, which means tomorrow starts the next season in the astrological lineup, which would be Cancer, which is, the crab. Today is also the summer solstice, which means that today is the first day of summer, quote unquote. So if you want to get technical with that too, the first full day technically won't be until, the first full day of summer technically won't be until tomorrow, if you want to get technical. Okay, so it is just a little after 7 o'clock. And, well, I'm bored and I need something to do that doesn't involve me sitting in front of a screen, so I'm decided to go walk around the neighborhood a few times while I'm looking at a screen and talking to a screen. Oh, God. You know what I just realized, guys? Every single president that we've had in the last almost 2.5 centuries of this country's existence in the world, and I guess of humanity too, every single president we've ever had was all born in the last millennium, as in the last 1,000 years in terms of time, from the year 1000 AD to 1999, which is the year I was born. Every single president we've ever had was born within that time frame. And one day soon, this country will elect the first president born in this century and this millennium. When? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. No idea who it'll be or when it'll happen. But all I can say is that right now, anyone born in, let's see here, if 94 is 30 years and subtract 5 years from that, it would be, what would that be, 1989? So, pretty much anyone born as late as 1989 can technically, officially run for president, as long as they're of age to, be elected and to be of that age by the time they get sworn in and, into office. Yeah. Next year, anyone born in 1990 or late or earlier could potentially run for president. So just keep that in mind. By the time that anyone born in 99 can run for president, let's see here, when I turn when do I turn 35? Because that's the age requirement for president. I turn 35 in 10 years. So it would be 2034. But that's not a presidential election year. So it'll be the 2030s until anyone born in the last millennium could fully be elected, could run and be elected as president of the United States. Of course, you gotta, they have to have the right age requirement of being at least 35. You have to be born here in America, or the only side to that is that if you were born in another country, one of your parents has to be a U.S. citizen, and you have to live in the U.S. for at least 14 years, like permanently. Well, all I can say is that of the requirements to become president, I fit 2 of 3. I was born here in America, so we're good there. Let's see here. I have lived in America permanently for my entire life so far. For the 25 years I've been alive, I've lived all of it here in America. I have been in Canada once before, but I was just, on vacation for, a couple of days, being, in another country. But in terms of permanently living, we're good. And let's see here. Am I 35? No, not yet. That's 10 years from now. Which, who's to say if we'll even have a country 10 years from now? Well, if I were to run for president, I would hit the age requirements until 2034. But there's only 2 presidential election years. There's only 2 presidential election years in the 2030s. The first one will be in 2032. I will be 33, so I'll be just short of it. But I could still run for Congress. I could run for both houses of Congress if I want. Because you have to, hell, I could even run for the House of Representatives right now. Because the age requirement for the House is that you have to be at least 25 for the House. Let's see here. You have to live in the state that you're going to represent. And you have to be a citizen for I think it's like 7 years. So in terms of for the House of Representatives, I fit all 3 of those requirements. So I could run for the House anytime I want now. Anytime between now and, until the day I die. It's because, I just turned 25 a few weeks ago. We're good there. And I would be 25 by the time I get sworn in. You have to live in the state that you want to represent. So, I was born and raised here in Ohio. And I would have to you have to represent for, you have to live in the state you're going to represent. So, we're good there. And then we have to either live in the state for a certain amount of time or just live in the U.S. for a certain amount of time. I'm pretty sure it's to live in the U.S. for a certain amount of time. And I'm pretty sure it's 7 years. I don't remember what it says in the Constitution about the House and Senate, because the only thing that's really, just only the two main things kind of stick to me: the age requirements, and that you have to live in the state that you are going to represent. Oh, I've seen that car before. Interesting. So yeah, if you were going to be a congressman for the state of, I don't know, Wisconsin, you can't live in like Nevada and say, hey, I live in Nevada, I'm going to run for Congress in Wisconsin. Can't do that. I mean, I'm sure someone's tried, but can't do it. Let's see here. So yeah, I could technically run for the House of Representatives anytime I want now. Which is funny because that's my ultimate goal. I want to have a very long political career, as I may have stated before. But in order to have a good political career, it's best to start locally, you know, with your own local government, like city, county, or whatever. And just, you know, work your way up from there. I want to be in the legislative branch. So I kind of wrote out a little bit of a plan of how I want to, you know, acquire that and achieve it. Because even I was doing some research on like local and state political offices, and the only type of requirements I really truly technically found that was really useful information was an age requirement. According to the Ohio Board of Elections, if you want to run for any type of city, county, or state office, how the age requirement is 18. Yeah. So when I turned 18 back in 2017, I could technically, I could have run for any form of city or state office. So if I want to be in the legislative branch in my entire political career, I could start in my city's city council, but I have to live in the ward that I'm going to represent. And those are 2-year terms. Which is weird is that the terms for city council, well, all city counts, like all city offices, at least for my hometown here in Marion, terms commence New Year's Day the year following, meaning the year after they have an election, whether it be like an actual general election or a special election. Well, I don't know about special elections, but for actual elections, like a general election, for like, you know, a new city council, new mayor, auditor, you know, that type of stuff, it all commences the year following. And it's usually done on an off year. So the last election year for that was last year in 2023, which means that the official terms didn't commence until New Year's Day this year. Oh, man. Yeah, it's weird. It really is weird. Because I'm pretty sure I mentioned it before in other videos that there's 4 years with 3 different kinds of elections. So not counting all the years that are divisible by 4, which we will get to in a bit. So let's take let's just do the last 4 years as just an example, starting with 21 and ending this year, just that way you guys can get a visual on this. 2021 is more or less, I mean, it's just it's mostly for local and state elections and issues. So like, I don't know, let's say Ohio wants to, oh no, I don't want to do that, it's too controversial to use as an example. Okay, if Ohio wants to raise the smoking age to, I don't know, let's say to 25, it would have to be an issue and the whole state would have to vote yay or nay. If half plus 1 votes yay, then it will have to be worked on around and take a couple of years for, you know, political actions in order for it to technically be a state law. If it's no, then it gets dropped completely. So that's basically what that year's elections are kind of like. But it's mostly the year after the presidential election is usually it's usually just all for like local stuff. You know, it's mostly like city and state stuff. That's usually what that's for. It's mostly for like issues, like issue 1, issue 2, issue 4, you know, stuff like that. Now, in all years ending with an even number are congressional election years. And when it's in the middle of a president's term, that's why you hear the term, you hear the term midterm elections, because, you know, they're the midterm elections. Those, even though everyone doesn't really pay attention to midterm elections or just congressional elections in general, I'd argue that, you know, even though a lot of people say the presidential elections are really the elections that decide American policy, which can be true, but in most cases, the midterm congressional elections are really the ones you really got to pay attention to. Because sometimes, like how we've seen here recently, in recent years, especially in the midterm of 2018, because prior to that midterm election, the Republicans controlled the White House, the House, and the Senate. But with the results of the 2018 midterms, the Republicans still controlled the White House at the time. The Republicans controlled the House. Actually, no, the Senate was controlled by the Republicans, but the Democrats ended up winning back the House, which is where you coined the term split Congress, in which a different party controls both houses of Congress. So in the case of 2019, you know, when the next Congress was sworn in, which was the, oh God, the 116th Congress, the Democrats controlled the House and the Republicans controlled the Senate. And even with the first impeachment trial of Trump that was instigated by the Democrats that controlled the House, it was immediately killed off in the Senate. But going as recently as the midterm elections in 22, you know, halfway in the middle of Biden's term, because, you know, it was the first time in a long time that the White House and both houses of Congress were controlled by Democrats. And so the House was nearly split, almost 50-50 on what party would control it, but the end result was that the Republicans controlled the House with a 4 or 5 seat majority. But, you know, as you all seen, you know, in the opening days of the first couple of days of Congress, even though the Senate was ready to get to work after swearing in the new senators, or re-swearing in senators that have, you know, either won a new term or was reelected to another term. The House spent 4 days on who was going to be the next speaker, because, you know, Kevin McCarthy went through a brutal 15 rounds of voting, all within a span of 4 days. And then they finally agreed to make Kevin McCarthy the new House Speaker. And then in October of last year, for the first time ever, voted to boot him out. And then they went through a whole 2 weeks without a House Speaker, meaning nothing in Congress could get done. And they tried Steve Scalise a few times, no success. They tried my own Congressman, Jim Jordan of Ohio, no success. And then they tried Mike Johnson, who was successful. And that's how we have Mike Johnson as our current House Speaker. The first time that the speakership was ever forced to be vacant outside of resignation or death. So in terms of the country itself, Mike Johnson is currently the most powerful Republican in our government. The most powerful Democrat in our government is, you know, obviously Biden. He's, you know, president. But we'll see what happens in November. Oh yeah. So that's pretty much like midterms. It's mostly all congressional. Because, you know, that's when we're voting for a new Congress. All 435 seats in the House are up for re-election or election or whatever. But in the Senate, 1/3 is up for re-election. Because, you know, the framers of the Constitution decided that the Senate should be split as evenly as possible into 3 classes. And since, you know, each state has 2 senators, regardless of how big or small each state is in terms of size or population, every state gets 2. And, you know, we have 50 states and there's 100 senators. Class 1 has 33 senators. Class 2 has 33 senators. And Class 3 have 34. Meaning that if for some chance, hypothetically, if Puerto Rico were to become the 51st state and we have 102 senators, we would have 34 members of the Senate in each of the classes. Ohio has a class 1 and a class 3 senator. So for this year, even though it's also a presidential year, which we will get to, we Americans will be voting for any and all seats for the class 1 senators. So it'll be a total of 33 seats that are up for grabs for securing for the other party, or a newcomer, or re-election. I will make a video later in the year saying what states will have the class 1 senators for election. So yeah, the year in between the presidential election years, like dead center, are midterms, which are mostly congressional. The year after that, which in terms of our little analogy so you can get a better picture, last year, 2023, is all state and local issues. And like how I mentioned already, that is usually when, for my hometown, for here in Marion, that is when we vote for a new city council, city auditor, a new mayor if needed or if applicable. Just, a new-ish city government. Like hell, we just voted for a new city council where the vast majority of the city council is Republican. A long-term Democrat mayor decided that he wasn't going to run for another term. It would have been his 5th term. So yeah, he was in office for 20 years. And I have no idea who the mayor was before him. But yeah, I have absolutely no idea who it was. But we voted a Republican mayor, and it is Republican Bill Collins, who I'm pretty sure at one point he was chief of police. At one point, I swear he was. Because right now, chief of police is, I forgot what his first name is. I think it's Norm Macdonald. I think. But I'm not entirely sure. Yeah. And then obviously 2024, this year, we're voting on, a new president. So for me, living here in Marion, Ohio, in the United States of America, there are a lot of things I have to vote for. Not only do I have to vote who I want to be president of the United States, I also have to vote for who I want to represent me in the state house in Columbus, for the state house and state senate, which I will have to explain how the state legislature works one day, because it's kind of confusing even for me, which is why I prefer to understand stuff on the federal level and not the state level. but I'll occasionally tap my toe into the state level of government, even though I know like little to nothing, even though I really care about national politics. I don't really care much for local and state, but it is what it is, I guess. I mean, yeah, if you ever see me watching something about live politics, like watching something of the government, I mean, I'll try to go to a city council meeting if I can, but unfortunately I work every single Monday and they meet every other Monday. And even if they have to reschedule it to a Tuesday, I also work every Tuesday. So I'm kind of screwed on that. I mean, they do upload the meetings onto YouTube that I could like watch or listen to or whatever, but that's just so much work. I don't know if I have the full time to actually quote unquote do that. But anyways, if I'm gonna watch anything about the government like live, like in progress, it would most definitely be Congress, more specifically the House of Representatives, because you know that's the part of the government where I want to be in at the very end, at least until I'm dead. But you know, there's no way, if I were to run for Congress, there's no way I would technically quote unquote win, because our current congressman, you know, he's been in office since 2007, and you know, he's a strong Trump supporter, he's a Trump ally. He was given the Presidential Medal of Freedom before Trump left office. So there's absolutely no way I could probably overtake him, unless if I run third party, or I don't know, I doubt it. Well, let's see here. But yeah, it's definitely Congress. If you're ever see me watching anything having to do with the government in live form, it would be Congress, and it would be the House of Representatives. I mean, I'll occasionally watch something of the Senate if it's something very important, like an impeachment case or impeachment trial or whatever. Then I'll listen to it or watch it, but I usually just take a few glances of like what's going on in the Senate. Like, oh, okay, so they're doing this. They're debating on a bill that's very important, or oh, they're doing a confirmation of someone, or you know, whatever. Oh boy. Let's see here. But yeah, so I have to vote for who I want to be president, who I want to represent me in Columbus as, you know, the state legislator, who I want my congressman to be, you know, in Washington, which, you know, I'd be surprised if he was booted out of office, although I highly doubt that Jim Jordan will be removed from office or voted out of office, or until he retires. He's still, he's still kicking. He's like 60, still kicking it. I mean, yeah, I would say. And then I have to vote who I want to represent me in the Senate, because Ohio has 2 senators, as I said before. We have Republican J.D. Vance, who was just elected he was just elected in 22 to take over the longtime Ohio Republican Rob Portman, because he decided to retire and not run for re-election for another term. JD Vance is filled in that spot. It was sworn in last January. Not this past one, but the last one. Last year, 2023. He was sworn in. Let's see here. What else is there? Oh yeah. So JD Vance he's a class 3 senator, elected in 22, sworn in 23. Okay, cool, whatever. Ohio has a class 1 senator, as I mentioned before, since we have a class 1 and class 3. And our class 1 senator is Democrat Sherrod Brown. So he's up for re-election, and he, in terms of like the Democrat seat, he has secured the Democratic nomination for, to keep his seat in Congress. I have no idea who his Republican challenger is, but am I going to vote for Sherrod Brown? Hell no. I will not vote for him because, well, for one, he's a Democrat, and I'm not Democrat. But depending on who the Republican challenger is, will depend on if I will even vote in that little election or not. So there's that. So there's president, state general assembly, for the state house and state senate, and there's congressional ones for the House and Senate in Washington. And I think that's really it. Yeah, I think that's it. And I'm pretty sure next year, hold on, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. Okay. Oh yeah, I forgot. Last year, well, in 22, Governor DeWine was up for re-election, and he won re-election. So he will be our governor until 2027. So in 26, we'll have to vote for a new governor. But that's only in 2 years' time, which I will not worry about that until then. So, like always, like how I've done pretty much since 2018. Although what I did in 2018 was that I predicted who was going to be the governor of Ohio, along with the party of that person, and what party is going to take over both houses of Congress, the House and the Senate. As you may know from that, I was 1 out of 3 right going into 2019. Ohio did not vote for a Democrat governor. We voted in Mike DeWine, a Republican. The House was in control by the Democrats, and the Senate remained under the Republicans, although I think they lost 2 or 3 seats from that midterm. I think, but I'm not too sure. In 2020, I predicted that Trump would win re-election, and it'll be a Republican-controlled Congress again, but it'll be very, very close, as in like a 4 or 5 seat majority for the Republicans in both houses. Well, I was 0 out of 3 for that one. So in 22, I predicted that DeWine was going to win re-election, and that the Republicans were going to control both houses of Congress with a slight majority. Again, with like 4 or 5 seats. And of that, I was 2 for 3. DeWine was reelected as governor, and he will remain governor until 27. The Republicans controlled the House by about 4 seats. And the Senate remained under Democrat control literally by like 2 seats. So you're probably thinking, okay, so for time number 4, are you going to be 100% right? I don't know. And sometime October, whenever I decide to do the my election predictions video, sometime in October, like how I always do, that will be when I will make my election predictions. And I'm going to do it like how I did in 2020. Who I think president is going to be, and what parties can control both houses of Congress. Just remember, even though everyone's so more worried about the race for president, you need to be more careful watching all the congressional elections. Because remember, whichever party controls Congress is the one that controls most of the president's agenda, good or bad. Okay, so we've been walking around for over 40 minutes. I would say we're gonna call it quits, because I actually have to pee. And so I'm gonna go into my house and go pee, and then I'm gonna figure out what to do from there. So anyways, thanks so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next video. Toodles!